Hey guys, back on another YouTube video. Today it's going to be showing how I take apart this Denix 1911. Now, another thing I want to talk about since I'm talking about this gun is this is not made to the exact specifications of the original 1911 A1s that were issued to the military. And the reason I know that is because I originally was going to replace the grips with some checkered ones, and my father actually had a spare pair of grips that go to his Remington 1911. And I went to go put them on, and they did not line up at all. But I understand why Denix did that. It's because they do that so that way no one can just take real parts and put them on there and make it look more realistic. So that I understand. And anyway, and another thing is the clip is not removable. I've been meaning to say that, but I'm still fine with that because this was given to me by my good buddy Edward. And overall, it's still a nice, realistic looking prop. I mean, you can definitely still see the cast marks on it when you look closely. So anyway, let's get down to taking the sucker apart. Now, be advised, this is not how you take apart an actual 1911. There's a lot of different ways. This one is very similar, but not the exact same. If you want to know how an actual 1911, just like this model, is taken apart, I suggest going to a more professional site such as, let's see, ForgottenWeapons.com or Hickok45. Because I'm just showing how you take apart this Denix 1911, just so that way if you want to modify yours to make it look realistic, it's not a problem. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this thing taken apart. And just like the real 1911s, you press this down, turn this to the side. Come on. Oh yeah, it's the other way if I remember right. There we go. Come on. There we go. And then that comes out. And you got your plug. And you got your spring that I modified. And then, of course, you got your main sight. And then tuck your hammer down and hold it down all the way. And then just pull it forward. And then just, there you go. Slides off. Now, the slide itself is very reminiscent of the original 1911, but there's a few things they do so that way no one can just take this and modify it to shoot bullets, of course. And that's because they put plugs and stuff right here so nobody can do that, which, of course, is understandable. And they seal this area up so you can't put a firing pin in it. Still a beautiful replica, and it's got nice weight to it. It's all solid metal. And that back. And here's going to show what I did to this thing. I completely polished the barrel. Now this does come off, and all you have to do is simply remove that screw and this whole barrel pops off. Now sadly, this is another piece that was terribly loose, so what I did to modify is I took the barrel off and put a brass washer, and then re-screwed the screw back on, and it's tight as ever. And then there's that. Another thing I'll show y'all is how the grips look when you take them off. There we go. There's that. There's one grip. And there's what the inside of that looks like without the grip. Now, of course, on the real 1911s, there would be a gap right here where the magazine is shown with the rounds. Sadly, of course, it's a replica, so it doesn't do that. This is all one solid piece right here. And then on the reverse side, there you go. On this side, you've got the screws to take this whole frame apart, which I will not take apart because it is a pain to get all these springs back in place. Now, in order to put a spring in this, what I basically did is I took this one screw out and gently bent it up and got the piece out because it's just held together by two metal pegs on the inside. And so all I did was I put a spring in this piece because it was hollow, and voila. Now it doesn't rattle around that much. And I also polished the front end of the barrel, again, to make it look more realistic. Still, it goes to show how realistic Denix will go to show their guns look realistic. They even put a fake bullet in the casting. Now, the only thing I wish is that this gun would lock in place, But other than that, I still think it's well worth the money to get one of these if you want a really nice, realistic looking replica. Now, but as far as this thing being compared to an actual 1911 from the same time period, I would give it about a 40 out of 100 because there's a lot of things about this that is not like the actual original. Like, for starters, of course, the magazine would obviously drop out. And, of course, the barrel would not look like this. There would be a lot more moving parts in this one, and the barrel would be all one piece. But like I said, this is a prop. It's not meant to be an actual firearm. But I still think it's pretty good for the money, and all the parts, as far as taking the slide off, do resemble the actual 1911. And again, if you want to modify your spring, all you have to do is take a larger spring, or let me rephrase it, take a little bit of a longer spring, it's the same size, and put it on it, and there you go. And like I said, as far as stripping the paint off this, it was already coming off anyway. And that's what I also love about these guns is, yeah, when you first get this, it has that beautiful blued look finish. But over times of using it and playing with it, that finish will wear off. That's actually what happens to real firearms if they're heavily used. And personally, I like the fact that it has its own kind of patina look. And eventually, I want to get one of these that is all chromed out or nickel plated, as my father would call it. And another reason I vaguely know this is the exact same way is because my father does own a couple of 1911s. He owns a Kimber Compact and he owns a Remington 1911, which Remington is one of the contractors that made this during the war. And of course, so did Colt and Springfield Armory. All those companies did contract to make this gun. But of course, everyone who knows their firearms knows John Browning is the one who designed this firearm. And damn, he did a good job. But anyway, so now let's put this thing back together. Very simple. The little sorry about that. Little thing right here. You make sure the spring is on it. Yep. Well, actually, you don't have to put the spring on it first. What you could also do is put the slide on first. And it just slides back on. There we go. Yep. Alright. There's a slide back on. Then you can put the spring back in it. Then, of course, you put the other pieces back on. This one's going to be kind of tricky because you have to get these on at the exact same time, but it is worth it once you get it done. Okay, there we go. There we go. Got those pieces on. Last but not least, let's put the grips back on. Again, it goes to show, with a little bit of modification work, you can make your Denix pistol look even more realistic. But like I said, for the money, it's definitely worth it because it's something you can modify. And the only reason I knew how to modify these is, one, I do know how a 1911 goes together. And on top of that, I used to be in the prop business before I got into knives, so I do know how to modify replicas and stuff to make them look more realistic. But I'm not into the props that much anymore. But every once in a while, when I want to make something look more realistic, I do it. Now, if I wanted to, I could strip the black bluing off this thing and make it completely nickel-plated like I did to one of my other revolvers. Or polished it, I mean. Like this originally had a matte gray finish when I got it. And it was already coming off, so I completely stripped all that off and hand polished it all the parts. And made it look even more realistic. And I added a better spring in the charging handle. So again, if you want to modify them, it's up to you. I mean, you can. So anyway, that's how it goes together. A simple Denix 1911 version of the A1s from the military. Now, sounds more realistic. Beautiful. The only thing I wish I could figure out is how to tighten this hammer, because this thing is definitely loose, but other than that, it's still completely solid together. And now a few little modifications. Now, of course, when I first got it, this thing was loose, which, of course, it's a display piece. It's not meant to be actually held in a holster. But to me, if it's meant to be a replica that you use in reenactment, it's supposed to at least look the part and function the part. So, on top of it, the slide was always rattling around. And, of course, I didn't want that, so I put a better spring in it to do that. It's a simple modification you could do. Again, it goes to show. Anyway, that's the end of this video, and I thought I would give a shout out to my good buddy Ronald from Ohio. He's a good friend of mine. Me and him have been friends for quite a while on YouTube. He's a blade brother just like me, and he also makes knives as well, and he does a pretty good job at it. I was a little bit skeptical when he first started talking to me about it, but once I actually got to see some pictures of his work, he does a pretty damn good job. So, keep collecting, my buddy Ronald, and always keep knife making, man. That's just something that's not much around anymore. I mean, it's sad there's not many knife makers around than there used to be, but I'm glad that they're somewhat starting to revive all that, because there's Forged in Fire, there's people that actually want to try it, because that's what I love about knife making, is anybody can do it. If you've got a will, there's a way. As my good buddy Walter Searle says. So anyway, keep collecting, my brothers, and I'll look forward to doing another video. Again, if you want to pick yourself up a nice, decent replica, always go for the Denix ones, because they do go the extra mile to make their replicas look super realistic. And of course, they have orange caps on them, but you can actually just take them out if you want to. Again, keep collecting, my brothers, and as always, stay sharp. Keep collecting, Ronald.